Thank you. Welcome to The Dream Giver, a series to help equip you to know and discover your dream, to believe in it so deeply that you overcome the fear that you face at the thought of pursuing it. And then the internal character and strength to deal with those people who come to you and say, that's a lousy idea, or you'll never be able to do that, or you tried that 3 years ago and it didn't work. What makes you think it'll start working today? And to break through those border bullies that stand at the border of your life, and then to travel through the wasteland, that period of time in your life that it seems like you cannot make any progress. And depending upon how you respond to the wasteland, you may not be making any progress. If you actually harden your heart to the process of the wasteland, it will be a waste. Because you won't be changing. Your competence won't be growing, your capacity won't be growing, and you won't be growing. So certain people enter the wasteland that should have been there for maybe 16 or 17 months, and 16 or 17 years later, they're still in wasteland. And they weren't supposed to be in wasteland. They were supposed to have been long past the dream that they were stuck on. So make sure that your heart keeps open, your mind keeps open, and you remain a good learner in the school of the dreamer in wasteland. When you come out of wasteland, you are invited up to the mountaintop, to the sanctuary, where the inner life gets dealt with by the dream giver himself. That was an emotional session for me because I remembered the times in my life when I had that issue of give me your dream. And no matter how many times you know that, it still is never an easy task to release the dream that you are pursuing. But when you come down off the mountain, you come into reality. This is the part of the dream that creates most fear. These are external obstacles. These are people who are opposed to you. These are people who realize there is a problem here, but they benefit from the problem. They make money off the problem. They use corruption in the problem. They want the problem. I have a friend who tried to help a whole nation with something that would have made a huge difference to the whole country. He spent 10 years, and he came back to the United States so discouraged and disappointed because even though the people in leadership knew what it would mean to the entire country, because they were making so much money from this problem, they wouldn't allow the problem to be solved. Corruption. That's a giant, isn't it? Sometimes the giant is the fact that you don't have the systems, or you don't have the people, or you don't have the money to follow that dream. Those are giants that stand in the way. Sometimes you can predict what giants are. Sometimes you know them all the way back here. When I moved to Africa, when our family moved to Africa, I saw this dream from this place and knew a little bit of the giants. But now that we're in the middle of fighting the giants, there's a lot more of them than I ever imagined. And they're stronger than I ever imagined. And they're taller than I ever imagined. Or maybe I'm smaller than I ever imagined. So it's not always that you know ahead of time. And sometimes you are helping somebody else out with their dream, and there's a giant in the way that's stopping them, and you are brought in without even knowing it, and the giant becomes your giant, not just their giant. And you're fighting something that you weren't even thinking about. So as you think about the valley of the giants, realize it is a valley. That is, it's a narrow part of the mountains that come like this, and it comes from the base, and it goes all the way up, and you fight not only obstacles that aren't living, they're just there. They're in your way, and you have to find a way around them. Or they can be people, they can be systems, and they could be, perhaps you want to say, spiritual things that are in the way, problems that stop this dream from being met. When you think about your dream, remember, a dream is always rooted in somebody's problem or need. Something is wrong here. And the dream is, you're coming to make it right. Whatever it may be. There's a reason why it's here. There's a reason why it's there. And in time, the reasons actually are giants that you have to face. Now, these giants are real and they're intimidating. They make us feel like, who am I? What can I possibly do against this giant? Because it's real. And as you stand in front of it, if your dream is of any size, and it usually is, these giants are large. And they feel like, how on earth can I ever face this giant? So those feelings and what to do about them is the theme of this particular session. And when I think about what to summarize this whole process, I think of the word conflict. It's just conflict. It's not a fist fight, it's a struggle that you are in a battle to overcome whatever's in the middle. And that battle can be extremely intense. And it can be threatening to you and to me. There are some pitfalls about this that I want you to know about. Number one, somehow, although we're afraid back here of those giants, if you went up sanctuary and you came down off a sanctuary, you can have a naiveness in you that these giants are going to fall down easily. These giants don't fall down easily. Don't go into here without understanding that you're in danger fighting a real giant. I taught a couple in graduate school, and they were from South America, and they said to me, when we go back to our home in Colombia, we are going to fight the drug lords. I said, are you sure you're going to fight the drug lords? They said, yes. And then they said, would you like to come help us? I said, it's not part of my dream. But I'll never forget, years later, as this couple bravely took a stand in the heart of where the drugs were in Colombia. And their lives were threatened repeatedly. If you do not stop, we will kill you. And I remember the day that he came outside of his door. I knew his wife Ruth and his children, and he was shot right on the front door. He was fighting a real giant. And I want to sober us. Not all giants can hurt us this way, but many of them can. And if you eventually seek to handle a major dream that has major giants, there are many people who are opposed to you solving this giant. So be aware of that. Use caution to it. But you've got to have bravery in the middle of that. In this session and the next one, I'm going to share a few personal stories because it seems to help people make these thoughts more concrete. I remember when a president of Africa asked me to come up to visit with him. This country had seen many, hundreds of thousands of people murdered over the years. And peace was just starting to come back in. And I was at one country helping this country, and the president of that country called this other president and said, you need to meet this individual, myself and my friend, and he needs to come help you. So I was a bit uncomfortable going to this country, and we got ushered in by his general to the office of the president. And the president was seated right here, and I was seated right here, and we began to talk. And I said to him, what are your goals for the country? What are your dreams for the country? And he said, I want to restore peace. And then he named 3 other things that I'm not going to tell you what they are because I don't want you knowing who this is. And he named 3 things. And I said to him, as he looked at me, I can help you with those 3 things. I can go back to the United States and mobilize people in the government and in business to come back and help you with this. But if I do that, the people back in the United States are going to do it because they trust me, because I've been doing things for a long time. And I just have one question for you, Mr. President. Can I trust you? Will you steal the money? Will you be corrupt with what I do? If you do, that's your own choice. But I want you to know I can't help you. I won't judge you, but I cannot help you. Because my reputation's on the stake, and I'm depending upon you. So I looked him in the eye and I said, so, Mr. President, can I trust you? There were submachine guns right there on the other side of that wall. And he looked at me and said, no one has ever asked me if I can be trusted. I said, yes, sir. And he said, you wouldn't believe me no matter what I said, so I will send you somebody tonight at 9 o'clock, and you can ask him any question you want. At that moment, the giant that he gave to me, the three of them, and I knew I could help him with all three, but I also knew there's this giant here of corruption. And to not ask the question would be naive. And to ask the question means man to man, we're going to talk about this issue, can you be trusted? At that moment, I was in danger. Sometimes, if you're going to be a person who pursues the dream, you're going to be in danger. And you have to understand, at that moment, your heart's going to pound, and you're going to wonder, Lord, are you going to be here at this moment, or am I going to see you quicker than I thought? Second misconception and pitfall that I've seen over and over again, and this is a hard one. It's been hard for me and for my family in Africa. When you proceed through this valley of giants en route to do what is good for the people in this situation, it's going to be shocking how controversial what you're doing is and how much criticism will come to you in the process of doing the dream. Sometimes from the very people who you are helping. This happened to my son recently, David, and he was helping in a major way this part of a city. And because some of the power was changing, not that David was changing it, but it was changing, there was all kinds of criticism coming to him, and he is heartbroken. And I said, son, you have to understand, if you're in the dream to help the people, you'll inevitably be disappointed. But if you're in the dream to please the dream giver, you'll never be disappointed. So this issue of criticism is a real thing that you and I need to be aware of that's going to happen to you. Don't be caught off guard, because at that moment you're sacrificing for the dream. You are. And hopefully by that point your motive is pure. Your motive is sacrificial. And therefore you are even more vulnerable to criticism about the method that you're doing or the motives that you have. And I've seen more people early on in the battle against the giants get knocked out of the fight because they weren't aware that a punch is going to come from this side. How many of you are identifying with what I'm saying? Now let me see if I can't get a couple of these major points across to you. When you think about a valley of the giants, you must understand that you are fighting against the hindrances to the cure that's here. Why do we call this a giant? It's in the way of me and helping this person or group of people. It's a hindrance to me. Now, how you handle that hindrance is up to you. There's many different ways to do it. But one thing I want you to understand is the hindrance is real, and you're going to have to face it head on sometime. I remember I was asked to come to a country to help them. And they said to me, we believe that our country is supposed to be the turnaround nation in the whole continent of Africa, and that other countries in the continent will fly down and see what we did, and we are going to help turn Africa. And they said to me, will you come? And I said, well, how deeply or how widely do the people of this country believe this? And they said, we believe it strongly. I said, okay. And they said, what do you require? I said, I require a meeting of the president, a meeting of the prime minister. And then I said, what's the largest meeting of leaders you've ever had in your country's history? And they said 732. I said, what's the largest room that you have in the country? 2,000. I said, I'll come when you have 2,000 leaders. And they said, what do you mean? You won't come without the president or prime minister or 2,000 people that are leader. I said, well, if you honestly believe that the country's going to turn around and become the leader, if the president's not in it, and the prime minister's not in it, and the leaders are not in it, you're wasting your time. And they called back 2 weeks later and said, well, the prime minister will meet with you, but the president's going to be in France. So will you come anyway? No. Well, what's your fee? I don't have a fee. Well, you're not hiring me. I'm coming to help you. They called back a few weeks later and said the president canceled his trip to France and he wants you to fly to see him at his ocean place. I said, what about that other room? We think we can get 2,000. Okay. So I meet with the president at the beach, and then I meet with the prime minister, and I'm talking to the prime minister, and I say to him, sir, remember, this is their dream. So it's not my dream, it's their dream. I'm asked to help with something in the way of their dream. And you're going to be that way too, once you open your heart to do this. And some of you are already doing this. So I said to the prime minister, will you please come and open this meeting and welcome the people and give a little speech? He said, how many people are coming? I said, 2,000. He said, no way. No way 2,000 leaders of our country will be there. Maybe 500. I said, well, they tell me more than that. They said, no, it may be 500. I said, okay, you're the prime minister. Obviously, you know more than I do. Would you come anyway, even if it's only 500? He said, okay, I'll come, but I'm going to give a short speech and I have to leave. I said, okay. That night came. We both arrived at the same time. We came through this door. No, we didn't. We came through that door. We came through this door, and when we opened the door, it was 2,000 plus people. There was standing room only, and he said, I can't believe this. It was his moment. He gave a wonderful speech, and I was expecting him to leave. He doesn't leave. He he sits right here, and his hands were crossed just like this. What's this white American doing in our country? So I came up and I said, you know, I've been told that this country believes that its calling and destiny is to become the jewel of Africa and have a turnaround and show the rest of Africa how to do it. How many of you already believed that before you came? About 70% of the hands went up. I said, okay then, if you believe that, then we have to deal with a turnaround yourself. Because are you already turned around? And the people said, no, we're not. I said, okay, well, that's why I'm here. I said, over not too far away is a place called Zimbabwe, that there's a huge problem between white farmers and the black or colored people. There are two different groups of people in Africa. Blacks are one group and coloreds are a different group. It's different in America, but that's how it is in Africa. And as you may know, there's been white farmers killed and farms being taken away. And that problem is not just in Zimbabwe. It's in other places, and it exists in this country. I had flown up 3 days earlier, had taken a whole pad of notes of interviews, so I knew what was going on, and it is a giant. Big giant. So I said, I'm here to talk about the white farmers and the people that work for them because it's wrong. Not all of you are treating your people this way, but a lot of you are. And I said, if you are a white farmer, there was 1,000 white people in the audience and 1,000 black people and colored people. I said, if you're a white farmer and you've been exploiting the people who work for you and you've been making them live in a little tiny shack that you wouldn't even bring your own child into, that you've been treating them with disrespect, if you've been paying them so little money because you know they have no other place to go, and I made a whole long list of this. I said, if that's true about you, then I challenge you to repent of this publicly because it's a public action. And therefore, if you're a white farmer, and this is true about you, would you please stand up, come over down this aisle, shake me in the hands, and tell me on Monday morning, I will call my employees together, I will raise their pay, and I listed a whole bunch of things that were right to do. Therefore, if you're a white farmer, you please come. I looked at the Prime Minister. Now, what was I feeling? Whoa! Whenever you take on a giant, don't expect to feel peace. Well, I'm here, and nothing's happening. So I walk down the center aisle, and I go halfway back, and I said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overstating the problem here. Therefore, if there's a black man or a colored man in this audience who grew up on a farm like this and can tell us, was it really like this? Would you please come forward, and I'm going to give you the microphone. Nobody moved. I said, there must be one brave black man here, because there wasn't a brave white man so far. And a black man stood up from over here, and he came over, and I kept looking, Lord, don't make him be angry, because, boy, we'll have a problem that could explode that quick. He didn't. And I gave him the microphone. Until I die, I'll never forget what he said. He said, I grew up on a farm just like that. And my grandmother was raped by our white farmer. And my father's the result of that. And then he listed the way it was on that farm. I think everybody in that room stopped breathing, because giants aren't talked about openly. Giants hide under silence. And I said, does anybody disagree with this? Nobody disagreed with it. So I came back to the front, and I said, you know, you didn't pay me to come here. I paid my flight. You didn't pay me a hotel. I paid my hotel, and I won't take any money. I'm here to be of a small assistance, helping your dream come true. I don't have a speech to give. And I'm going to wait here for a white farmer. I'm not going to talk anymore, and I will stand here by myself all night long. There must be one white farmer that will come and do right. And I just stood there. Why? Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because until your heart opens and you don't value your life and you don't value what people think of you, and don't value anything except that need, you won't fight the giant. You'll say, well, I guess it was kind of risky to talk about white farmers. Let's change the subject. Because that's what we'll do. And that's why the giant remains. That's why the giant remains. That's why in America there's so many giants. We let them remain there. So I just stood there. I was sweating by this point, just feeling so vulnerable. And a big white man stood up right here. His cheeks were red. You could see he was emotionally flushed. He came down the middle of the aisle. He stood right here, and I shook his hand, and I said, sir, are you a white farmer? Yes. Have you been mistreating your people? Yes. Underpaying them? Yes. Making the living in the slum? Yes. Etc., etc. Do you here publicly repent of this behavior? Yes. Will you call your employees Monday morning? And I went right through the list. No. No. No, I will not do it Monday morning. I will do it Sunday afternoon. I said, sir, thank you. He stood here, and I said, there are more. And one by one, not a crowd of people, slowly, until there were 50 white men in a row across the front of this huge room. And I was just about ready to complete this part of it, and the black woman stood up. Way back over here. She stands up. She comes walking down the middle. She's upset. She doesn't look me in the eye. She's visibly bothered and shakes my hand and walks over here and stands the fifth person from me. And here's all these white men and a black, and here's this white guy in the middle. I said, I'm new to your culture and I'm sure I'm missing something very obvious, but you're definitely not a white farmer. Why are you here? Gave her the microphone. She said, because I bought a large farm from a white farmer 2 years ago. And in those 2 years, nothing has changed. They live in the same shacks. I pay them the same way. I treat them with disrespect. And she went right down the list. And she said, I am here to repent. And I said, you know, the issue isn't the color of the skin. The issue is, this is how agriculture has been in Africa. And at that moment, this began to teeter. You must attack the giant that's in front of you. Yourself. Why didn't David, Saul, Goliath, just stay at the top of the hill and said, Dear God, take care of Goliath? Well, wait a minute now, because that's what most people do. They stay up here nice and safe. You got to go down the valley. And you know what? Did David know that that rock would kill the giant? He did not. He did not. Did I know what was going to happen? Of course not. You cannot predict. Therefore, giants require risk. They just do. They require lots of risk. Now, this issue of the cure, I'm going to go a little bit longer here because I want you to get these things inside of your heart. You must face giants with creativity. There's not just one approach to a giant. Get out of the way! There's not just one approach. Here's the giant in the way. You know, I really would like to help those people, and I sense that you probably would too. Can we, will you help me? I've asked giants who've been shocked that you ask me for help. And out of kind of being blown away, they'll say, okay. Sometimes the best way to deal with a giant that's in the way is flat out avoid them. Just avoid. Don't tangle with them. Just get, if you can get here with them here, the point isn't them, the point is this. Sometimes you can avoid them. Sometimes you have to attack them. I mean, I attacked that thing, and I've attacked numerous. You have to attack it because it's got to come down. This won't work unless this comes down. Don't go here, go here. Sometimes you can form an alliance with them, and you could say, you know, I have this thing over here, and I wonder if the two of us can partner in this. And if this becomes more important, now, that looks funny, but that's what you can do. If this is more important to them than this is, you're free to go get the dream. Form an alliance. Sometimes somebody really hurt them. This is a lot of the reason why this is here. Somewhere along the line there's been great wounds and great injustices. And this happened because of it. And sometimes you have to come around and deal underneath here into the wound that's down causing this. So you want to be sensitive to what causes the giant. I was speaking in another country and I was talking about the fact that God wants to bless countries and He has no favorites. And I was talking to them about this prayer of Jabez. There were 6,000 leaders from a country, and I said to them, how many of you, therefore, will actually try this thing to pray and ask God to bless you and your country and your businesses, etc.? Would you please raise your hand? Then 5,900 of them, whatever, raised their hand. And then I came off the platform, it was a huge platform, and came down and said, if there's this many people who are going to be saying to God, please bless our country, is there any reason why God would say no to that? Nobody said anything. That was a bad sign. And I said, do you think God is blessing your country right now? Because I don't know. Nobody said anything. All of a sudden, where did this come from? I'm going here. This shows up. This is not supposed to be here. That's how it is sometimes. So I waited, and an older gentleman in the back stood up and said, "No, God is not blessing our country," and sat down. I said, "How many of you agree with that?" Everybody's nodding. I said, whoa. Why wouldn't God be blessing your country? A man over here said, "'Cause we kill each other." I mean, just like that. I said, "No, you don't." I couldn't handle what he said. He said, "Yes, we do. You don't know, but we're sitting by tribes in this room. And we go to break and we go to lunch. We don't talk to each other. We kill each other." And I said, "No, you do?" "Yes, and we rape each other's wives." And then I said, "Well, if I was God, I wouldn't bless you either." And I said, "How long do you want to be in a condition where this is true in your country?" Don't avoid it. Let's go on to the next point. Can you go around that one? Nah, you shouldn't go around that one. They're killing each other. Something's going on. So I said, "How many of you want this to be ended?" I said, "How long has this been going on?" "Generations." Generations. Who are the two groups that are killing each other the most? And they named the tribe in the north and they named the tribe in the south. I said, "Are there any of you from the 6,000 who are from the tribe in the north?" And a bunch of people raised their hand, and the tribe in the south raised their hand. I said, "Okay, do me a favor. If you're a tribe of the north, will you please stand on this part? Huge opening here. And tribe in the south, please come stand over here." The people came forward, lots of people. I said, "Okay, would you please elect a leader and send them up here?" In a minute, 2 people came up, and they faced each other. I had them face each other this way. And I said to the audience, the reason why this goes on for a generation is because of one word, and one word only. It's called vengeance. You hurt me, I hurt you. You hurt me, I hurt you. That's called vengeance. And I said the reason there's a vengeance is there's a hurt. And the reason that a hurt goes into vengeance is because one word was missing in the middle called, "I forgive you for hurting me. And if I don't forgive, I want to hurt you." I said to these 2 men, "Therefore, do you want this to end? Because if you want it to end, you must forgive." And they didn't answer for a minute. And this was a dignified older gentleman, and he said, I want to forgive." And this man nodded. I said, "Okay, sir, forgiveness doesn't work if it's general, not, please forgive me for what I've done to your tribe," won't work. Wounds happen one at a time. Forgiveness has to be for the wound, not for being hurt. Therefore, I want you to just say these words after me to him. "Please forgive me for killing your relatives. Please forgive me for killing your relatives. Forgive my tribe for raping your women." And I said, "Sir, you know the rest. Now go." This man couldn't look at this man. And he looks down and is trembling. I mean, this man is asking him to forgive a wound that's 3 generations old, that probably somebody in his family has been murdered, and he's saying, "Forgive me for it." So you're talking about raw pain. This goes on, and this man's just quietly weeping, but there's no response. I said, "Sir, would you get on your knees?" He quickly got on his knees, and he looked up into his eyes and began to beg this other man to forgive him. And I said to this man, "Put your hands on his shoulders and make your eyes look into his." And the sobs just came. Finally, that was over. I said to him, "Is there anything else?" He said, "Yes, they stole our property." I said, "Will you express forgiveness?" Yes, it was finished. This man stood up, and I said, "Now it's your turn." And without another word, this man fell on his knees and began to beg this man's forgiveness for stealing your sons, bringing them to our tribe, raising them as warriors to come back down and kill you. When it was over, these two men stood up, and we were all watching this. I mean, it was gut-wrenching. And these two men fell on each other's necks and began to sob uncontrollably. And they sobbed, and then it slowly stopped. And then they parted. I wish you could have been there. Then this man and this man looked at each other for the first time. And they embraced each other as brothers. So do you each accept this action on behalf of your tribe? Yes. So now it has to be personal. I want you and you to find somebody from each other's tribe. Would you start on your knees and don't get off until they have forgiven you, and switch it? What caused untold here? You can yell all you want. You can preach all you want. You can pay all you want. You can push all you want. But if the heart is broken, it stays there. Sometimes the giant just needs somebody to care about their heart enough, and they'll walk themselves away. Whatever it is to get to the dream, you must understand it's your greatest opportunity. When you look back over your life as you grow older, you're going to say to yourself, what were the climaxes of my life? If you follow your dream, your greatest climaxes occur in the valley of the giants. It is at those moments when you are most vulnerable and defenseless in some ways, in which you come against this. Now, I want to say a couple things here that may resonate with some of you and may not. Years ago, as I tried to understand this, I was wondering, why doesn't the dream giver just flat out move in and wipe the giants out of the way so I can go do this? I mean, if he wants this done, and he put it in my heart, and that's stopping me, why doesn't he fix it? Did you ever wonder that? I did too. So I began to trace back through the stories in the Bible to find out whenever the dream giver explained why this big thing happened, and I began to track it through the entire story until I found out the reason. If this giant is massive, and there's no way, humanly speaking, for this to come down, and you pursue it, and the dream giver gets involved in it, and I want to just say it this way, it appears to everyone, including you, oh, look what happened there. People will say this, thank God that thing came down. Thank that thing came down. And if I understand the dream giver a little bit, he says, what I want is I want my name to be declared. And I want my works to be known. And I want you to give me credit for what I've done in this. And what the Bible calls that is giving God glory. When somebody sees a giant come down that they've given up hope could ever come down, they will say the words, oh, thank God that happened. And at that moment, that is your greatest contribution of your life, because man exists to give glory to God. Therefore, for most of my life, I ran away from the giants. Now I understand they're the greatest moment of my life. It's the greatest gift the dream giver gives to you. It's the greatest opportunity. It is the climax of a human being's life to do something that needs to be done for the good of mankind. which means the bigger the giant, the greater the opportunity. Therefore, if you've been running away from giants all your life, you've been running away from the greatest moments that heaven has provided for you. Take a look and ask yourself the question, what giant am I facing? And what giant am I fighting? Or have you been a person who've misunderstood that the existence of a giant may be the greatest gift the dream giver gives to you to do for him? May you be known as a giant slayer in the halls of heaven. Woo! Well, we've been having a great time. I don't know what's going on in your living room, but we've just lost it. Welcome to The Dream Giver. What a series this has been. It's been so encouraging to me, and I hope it's been encouraging to you. Most of all, though, I hope that you've had a breakthrough in your own dream, that you've identified it more clearly, you have a sense of the direction of which way you're going, and hopefully you're heading toward the dream. And then maybe someday, somewhere, you'll come walking up to me and say, you know, that series, The Dream Giver, it helped me get on track with my dream. Then that makes all this work worth it. But before we wrap up this series, I want to give you a picture. We've been giving you a verbal picture of the landscape of the dream. And I've been trying to actually have an artist draw maybe Dream Island. And I want to show it to you back on our screen here. It's just a picture of the island of the dream. And if you look across that picture, there are all 7 parts to Dream World on there. On the far left is the land of familiar, where our dreams begin. And it goes all the way across, all the way to the top of that far mountain. That's the dream. That's the golden city on the top of the hill. And we all begin with the land of familiar when we feel like we're just an ordinary person who has an extraordinary dream inside of us, and we want to follow that dream. We must go through every stage. On this screen, we begin to take a look at it a little bit more carefully. And if you look at the left side, that little circle there with the town in the middle, that town is where you and I live. It's the land of ordinary. And we live inside of there. And it's not until we come out of that city do we enter into this comfort zone which circles the city. And the more we come to the edge where that rock wall is, that's that wall of fear that we must face. That's the edge of our comfort zone. As you come to the edge of that comfort zone, you're going to be met by some border bullies right there where that wall breaks open. And those border bullies are going to seek to turn you right back around, all the way back through that open meadow where you're comfortable in being, you're protected from the outside, all the way back inside to the land of familiar, back into your little house, and I don't want to deal with the dream. But hopefully by now you'll understand that the only way to get to your dream is to go through and break down that wall of fear, and on the other side, there's a period of transition. The transition from your comfort zone en route to your dream. And there are 3 stages that you go through in Borderland. The first one is when you break through that wall, you'll be met with that crowd we call the border bullies, who seek to turn you back. If you break through that, perhaps you go a little bit further in the direction of your dream, and in that clump of trees that you see, perhaps that's where you meet your border buddy, who is there just to give you some encouraging words. Usually don't stay with you much, don't get involved with the dream, but give you a verbal encouragement. If you continue, you come down to that raging waterway that separates borderland from the next stage in your dream. And that's where perhaps you could be overwhelmed right at the edge of the dream world beginning on the other side, which is the unknown. That's where you can meet your border buster. Because sometimes that little bridge across the top, there could be somebody, the last person, the last surprising border bully who is there to try and push you back. And you can't get over the top of the bridge and you're wondering, how on earth can I be free? That's when a border buster shows up and says, come on, have a boat. Come on, here's an oar. You can do it. I've done it. You can do it. I'll be cheering for you and I'll be here for you. That you hop that boat and you cross that raging river. Now when you get on the other side, it looks to you as you stand there looking far up that hill to the golden city of where your dream, it doesn't appear that there's anything in the way. And you don't see that pit that lies before you. That's actually a mixture of a desert and a badland and a wasteland. And when you look at this in detail, you'll find yourself many different roads leading nowhere in wasteland. And it's not until the preparation is finished, when you emerge from the other side, and we can flip to the next picture, and what you'll see is the second half of this dream island. Because on the left-hand side, you can see the sanctuary. You'll also notice at the bottom of that, there's a road that goes right on the bottom of the sanctuary down into the valley, because people skip sanctuary. And then if you look up into sanctuary, you'll see that waterfall in the pool where the invitation is come to the waters. And then you go up and you can see those trees and you see the light where it's come to the light. And then all the way to the right, you see this point going way up, and that's where you're brought out to the summit that we talked about in sanctuary, where you look way up there and you see that beautiful dream that you've sacrificed so much to get there. That's where the invitation is so strong in your heart. I can't wait to do it. And that's where you hear those words, give me your dream. Depending upon what you do, you come back down off of the summit, and that's the Valley of the Giants that goes right up that narrow, dark, kind of burnt over area that you must fight. And those different castles represent the different giants that you may face. And there's no way up that valley except past those castles. And every one of those giants is a different giant that you have to fight on the way. As you come all the way to the top of that Valley of the Giants, you can see a dark castle. Because ultimately, if that's a major dream, then not only do you have to fight the powers of evil, but you also have to fight the powers that are behind the powers of evil. You have to really struggle with root issues that are opposed to you. And sometimes we can misunderstand that is the oppression that lies right before the promised land that you're supposed to get to, that seeks to push you back, to discourage you, to put a dark cloud around you, anything to stop you from crossing that bridge to going into the land of promise. So that's it. Let's see if we can take a look at the big picture one more time. You see the picture of the dream island, from the land of familiar to the comfort zone, to the borderland, to the wasteland, the 3 levels of sanctuary, to the Valley of Giants, to the land of promise. I hope that picture stays with you forever. We're going to animate this. It's going to be a whole children's series, and it's going to be 3D, and we're going to have all these giants who are a part of this. But we want you to get this in your mind, because now you realize where you are in this whole picture. But in this last section, I want to talk about this land of promise. Land of promise is the place where you finally, after all this, get to do the dream. And the dream, if you remember, is meeting somebody's need. And early on, it's your need. It's a selfish dream. Then it's a shared dream with somebody else. Then it's a sacrificial dream. It's for you, not even for me. And if you keep moving, you don't ever go from a selfish dream to stage 4, which is a sacred dream. You don't go that way. You have to go through those stages, because selfishness and the desire to meet my need above anybody else's need. I'll share a little bit of me with you, but not a whole lot. That doesn't change very easily. And only until this becomes the sacred dream do you really become the person that you are called to become. And I hope you become that person. You won't recognize yourself. But that's who you're meant to be. That's who I'm meant to be. A person who lives outside of yourself for other people, and ultimately asks the question, what does a dreamer giver himself want done? Now, if I were to give a word for that land of promise, I would use the word that may surprise you a little bit. It is the word engagement. Engagement. That you, yourself, are engaged, if this represents the dream, and this dream are people and the need that they have, that you personally are engaged in making sure that the problem that exists is being solved, and that you yourself are engaged in the doing of it. This is where you do what you've wanted to do. And if you're following your dream, this should be something that you are good at doing intuitively. This usually isn't outside your gift mix. It's like a cluster inside of your heart that was put there, you know, the cluster being my talents, my passions, my experience, my intuition, all mixed up is like a magnet. It just is attracted to certain things. And this gift cluster is attracted to that need. And that's what pulls you. You know what I'm talking about? Where another need, you could say, you can do that. I don't want to deal with that. And it'd be rare, to be honest with you, that the dream giver would be having you do that except for a temporary thing. He makes you to do what you're going to love to do. But you got to be engaged. Now, there's some pitfalls here. Pitfall number 1 is don't think the land of promise is the end. Because somehow, this is what I see all the time. People who get to this place, they kind of, man, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm so glad I'm here. And this becomes the boundary of the rest of your life because you think life is one lap. Life isn't one lap. You can make it be one lap, but it's not. Because remember, you have the freedom to ask for more. You have the freedom to ask for more. Not only within this circle, which we'll talk about in a minute, because this dream maybe is dealing with this part of this land, but you could take this one and this one and this one all inside of that area. Or as time goes on, you could look over here and you could say, where's another need? Oh. Because by the time you're here, you've matured. And you don't say, where's the dream anymore? Quite the same. You say, where's the big need? And I promise you one thing, no matter where you go, there's big needs everywhere. So when people say, I can't find my dream, then I say, just look at the need. Because there's needs everywhere. And one of those needs, or maybe more than one, are going to pull you. That's the ground out of which the dream comes. The second part of this pitfall that I want you to think about is the land of promise will not remain exciting. Somehow we think, because of the anticipation, that by the time we finally get here, we're going to live in this emotional high forever. Sorry. You will live on an emotional high for a little while. And then the stars in your eyes will fall out. And you'll say, whoa, this is a whole lot of work. And this is going to take a whole lot of my time. And you're going to say this, if I knew how hard this was going to be. But guess what? Nobody's ever told how hard it's going to be. Because if we knew how hard it was going to be, we wouldn't do it, would we? That's why a dream giver knows what he's doing and just puts, stardust in your eyes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So you got to understand then, your excitement's going to die. Don't misinterpret that. Don't say, well, I guess I'm not supposed to do it anymore because the fire in my heart's going out. You know what you're supposed to do? Man, open up your heart, get the wood and stuff it in. Get that fire going again. And sometimes when it just won't go, still go. Just get yourself up. I don't want to do it today. So what? I'm tired of this. So what? Let somebody else do it. Don't you dare say that. This is where the dream is done. It is in the long run, not in the short run. I want to give you some principles. Principle number 1. The land of promise requires you to stay in touch with the need and to empathize. Empathize. Which means it's the pain of the dream. The dream is a picture of the need having been met. But beneath the dream is the pain. It's either the pain from suffering or the pain of not reaching your potential. It's a negative or a positive. It's a lack. It's this need. The need is what caused this. Make sure you stay in contact with the need of the person more than the dream. It's the people you're helping. It's not the dream you're doing. When we moved to Africa, we weren't really quite sure what we're going to be doing. Usually when we do something, we have a clear understanding of where we're going and we seek help to get there. When we moved to Africa, it's because of something that happened to us, not something we did. We weren't sitting at home saying, let's think about should we move to Africa, Asia, or India, or China. We weren't thinking of that. We were thinking about moving to Los Angeles. And when God ripped out our heart and put it in a place, okay, a place, He put it in a place. And He put it in this place, He didn't connect it to a dream. Here, come. LA is much closer. Aren't you this guy who prays for the expanded borders? Are we arguing here? So when you come to a place and where do you find the dream then? You find the dream where there's need. So if you leave our house, and we live in the most advanced city in Africa, in Johannesburg. If you drive out of our house and you turn right, you'll come to a light. When you stop at that light, there are people begging for food every day you drive. Every day, from about 7 till about 10:30 at night. Every day. If you turn left and head toward my office and come to a bigger intersection, there's more people. If you go straight to another light, which is another main road, there's more people. If you turn... Empathy. I feel your pain. I don't want to feel your pain. I don't want to think about this. I mean, I'll think about it day one, and here, some money. Oh, here's some more money. Oh, I don't want to see you. I don't want to think about your pain anymore. After day 17, I don't want to leave the house anymore. Big pain. Pain that doesn't go away. So I said, we need to be making meals and put them in bags, and every time we stop, let's give them food. And then my son said to me, Dad, come on out and come with me to a squatter camp near our house. We drove 20 minutes away, and we were in abject poverty. And we came to a little building that was this big. 30 people about. After the meeting, I came outside, and there was a young man there, maybe in his late 20s, who wanted some encouragement, and I was doing my best to encourage him, and he was a little bit emotional, and I reached around his side to comfort him, and when I did, I felt every one of his ribs. And I couldn't see his ribs because his shirt hung down. And when I felt his ribs, I don't know what the word would be. I groaned. And I said, "What did you eat this morning?" He said, "I ate the bread you guys gave us." "What did you eat yesterday?" "I ate the bread." I said, "We've only been given bread here 3 days. What did you eat the 4th day?" "Nothing." "The 5th day?" "Nothing." "When's the last time you ate?" "I don't know." And I said, "This isn't right." Empathize, feel with. So I put our son David right here in my mind. And I felt my son's ribs. And I said to myself, if that was my son, I'd fix this. And guess what? It's my brother. It's not my son, it's my brother. Therefore, empathize with it and fix it. See, that's the issue. I'm sorry that you don't have enough bread. I hope you have some more tomorrow. Let's get in our air-conditioned car and go home. What's the normal way to feel at a moment like that? Well, I know how I felt. I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to take that need that was right here every day. I don't want to deal with it. Because I felt every morning overwhelmed with the feeling of being overwhelmed. And I would cry in the morning. I would cry in the morning, day after day. And when you say, I don't want to deal with it, because you're overwhelmed, why am I talking about this? This is what dreams are made of. That's why. Take it back up. It's just big. What can we do? We're only one little family. And so you want to take this need and you want to boil it all down, and we said, let's take care of 20 families maybe. That's about what we can handle. What about all these other families? Right after we knew we were moving to Africa, I said to my son, I said, Dave, I need a handle. I need you to help me. I want you to hire a film crew, and I want you to go all through southern Africa for a week. And I want you to go out in the villages, and I want you to tell me and show me if there really is this hunger. And he came back, and he was visibly changed. I said, Dave, what was it like? He said, Dad, I don't want to talk about it. I said, just give me one illustration then. He said, look at the video. I don't want to talk about it. I said, Dave, just tell me one. Okay. We were in this village. We were going house to house, if you want to use that term. And he said, I came to this one house, and the man and I became friends, he said, and he said, come into and see my wife. She is sick. He said, Dad, I went in with him, and she was laying down, and she was sick, Dad. And the woman said to me, come closer. So he said, Dad, I came closer to her bed. The husband was right there. And he said, I said to her, I'm sorry that you're sick. And she said to me, I'm not sick. What do you mean you're not sick? I'm dying of hunger. Dad, she said, give me your hand. So he said, I gave her my hand, and she took my hand and said this to me. She said, I held the hand of my 3 best friends just like this as each one died of hunger. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to think about that. So what do you want to do at a moment like that? You don't want to empathize. You want to harden your heart? You want to say, I want to think about something else? Don't. Don't run away. So I said to him, that young man, this is wrong. We're going to fix this together. I said to David, Dave, God hates this. God doesn't want anybody going to bed with no food, ever. Therefore, what we need to do is we need to find out the solution. And we started reading the Bible from Genesis through the Bible, saying, what's the answer to that problem? Finally, we came back to this young man and said, you know what? We can't afford to keep on feeding this village, so we need to find a way that this doesn't happen. Because when you, as Americans, come and give all this food, they eat the food. The next day, you give them more food, and they eat the food, and guess what? Nothing changes. So here's what we did. We said, what's the answer? So after a few months, this is what we did. A person comes up to one of these little places where people live and knock on the door and say, we're starting a business here in the city. Would you like a job? Everybody needs work. And what we like to do is to go in partnership. And this partnership is an agricultural business. Are you interested? Everybody's interested. And we say, here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to plant with you, in partnership, a garden the size of a front door. It has 12 plants in it. And we'll bring the plants, and we'll help you plant it. We'll bring the fertilizer. We'll train you how to do this. And 75% of that is yours. And 25% of that is ours as a management fee. Are you interested? Everybody's interested. Okay, we have a piece of paper, we make a deal, and we sign this piece of paper. And we come back the next day and we plant 2 gardens. One garden is plants that you can continue to eat off of, and another one is the ones you harvest and eat and replant. At the end of 3 months, if that person has done a really good job with their 2 gardens, we say to them, would you like to grow your business? What do you mean? Well, we like how you work. How about if we double your business? What do you mean? How'd you like 2 more gardens? Oh, I'd love 2 more gardens. Okay, then we showed you how the first 2 gardens, the next 2 gardens are yours to plant. We'll bring the seeds, and then there's 2 more gardens. And what we do is we find this area, and we find the best man in the area that has the most respect and is a hardworking entrepreneur who doesn't have any work. And we say, how would you like to run this business? And before long, he has all these families all over the place that he is taking care of, and he hires an assistant. And every single garden gets visited twice a week. We've never had one garden fail. Because the people are hungry. The only reason we've had a garden fail is because of chickens, because of kids, or because of a mole. But it's never failed because of the person. So we come back after that 6 months and we say, would you like to grow your business? Yes! So we plant 2 more gardens. By this time, they're selling this. They're feeding their family of 5. And we don't have to spend any more money for them. I said to Dave, God doesn't want somebody receiving handouts. It's bad for the person, and it doesn't help the society. That society is supposed to be flourishing. So I said, it's got to be a business. And so these people who work here, they get 3 of those plants from each one of those gardens, and they sell some, and we keep some because we have to take care of this part of it. I said, Dave, this needs to be cheap, inexpensive, one time only. It's got to work. And so after all this experimentation, it cost $25 US. Not a month. One time. We have hundreds of families like this now. After about 6 months of this, we wondered what it was doing inside of the person. So we got the #1 university in the city of Johannesburg, Wits University, went to the graduate department, got the PhD, the head of the PhD department. Will you do a project on this and tell us what it's doing to the people? So they came and they studied what is it doing to these people now that they're in control of their own future. Instead of waking up in the morning, there's no food, there's no money. The next day, there's no food, there's no money. They woke up the next morning, I got food. And the next time I plant more of these, I can sell these and I get some money. They found out that there's an 89% improvement of the health. Within marriage, there's something like a 74% happiness growth. The confidence in the person, and it goes right down the list. And they came back and said, we've never seen such a radical change. And I said to Dave, Dave, this is so simple. And he smiled and said, Dad, isn't it supposed to be simple? So we took that idea and we were over in Swaziland. Because see, part of this whole vision, right, that you work on is you're here and you're taking care of this little part right here. So you have empathy. Effectiveness. When you're in your land of promise and you have empathy and it starts to happen, the next thing you do is, how do I make this more effective? So it takes less people, it takes less money, so this improves, and so we know it works. The third thing you do, not only is empathy and effectiveness, is you start asking yourself, okay, here is 1 million people we're taking care of this many right here, which in comparison to 6 months ago is a lot, but comparison to the people that aren't getting fed is nothing. So we say, okay, how does this increase a lot? Well, one is you do it in the circle, and two, you say, where's another circle? So I was visiting with the king of Swaziland, and I told him about this because many of his people are struggling with food. And he said to me, this is great, our people need this. What do you need? I said, I need 100 acres. Why do you need 100 acres? I said, I need 100 acres on a river that runs all year long so I can grow the seeds and put in some irrigation, and we'll get a tractor and a truck and a water truck and a greenhouse, and we'll from that take care of your entire nation. He said, you got it. What else you need? Then my son went to see the king of Zulus. He said the same thing. Then he went to see the king of Lesotho. He said the same thing. And then we meet somebody, comes along and says, you know, I really want to help in Africa. You do? What do you want to do? Well, I want to help people with hunger. Do we have a plan for you? Okay, now wait a minute. Why am I telling you this story? Why am I sharing it with you? I cannot grow a green plant. I buy a plant and it dies. If you said to me, do you like doing gardens? I hate doing gardens. Do you know how to grow maize? No. You do not have to know how to do the dream. I said this so many times the first session we were together, that you commit yourself to the dream, right? And you do not know how to do the dream, and you proceed to do the dream. Now the question I want to ask you is, what need are you dreaming to meet? What pain are you trying to solve? What lack are you trying to meet? That's why the American doesn't follow a dream, because they always look inward instead of outward. Dreams aren't inside of you ultimately, and they're not for you. It is blessed, more blessed to than receive. Therefore, as you think about this whole series, this issue of expansion can grow as fast as you want it to grow. You do not know how to do it, but if you look at the need. So I said to Dave, son, you know what? These guys are motivated. What's the next step? What should we bring here? And I said, go talk to the people. Come back, Dad, they want chickens. Why? Eggs, meat. Good idea. So try these experiments around here and find out what works. Comes back in a week, said, Dad, they want to start businesses. Great idea. We'll make loans. No gifts of any kind. Loans. What kind of businesses? Here's a business, here's a business, here's a business. Okay. That's how dreams grow. You ask, what else do you need? What else do you need? I was raised like you were to be a person who doesn't like to see pain. As a person who likes to be comfortable and a person who wants to get away from where there is pain. So when I moved to Africa, I had a choice. The choice is face the pain and help the need, or hide from the pain. And I went back, and I want to close with this. I went back to the Bible and I said, I want to find out how the dream giver feels about things I haven't cared much about. And I began to read every place in the Bible about orphans, about hunger, about injustice, about poverty, about strangers, about people in prison. And as I read those verses, I ran smack into not the heart of Africa. I went smack into the heart of the dream giver. She says, I hate injustice. I hate those who exploit. If you take care of the hungry for me, if you take care of the orphans for me, I will go before you and I will go behind you, and you can say to me whatever you need and I will give it to you. Because I want this done. And God, in some way, I don't understand, said, I will limit myself to your hands and your feet and your heart. And I found myself weeping in the morning, not because of somebody else's pain. I found myself weeping in the morning because of my sin. Of realizing I've been blind to that because I was just doing this. And I didn't deal with this. And kept bringing it up and reading those verses until my heart began to feel the pain of not doing what his heart was, and begging for forgiveness, and then asking, put your heart about this inside of me. And as it gets inside of you, you become a different person. As we close this series, I hope your heart is challenged. I hope you realize that there's no limitation to what you can do for other people. But it's going to cost you everything to go do it. That you must give away your life and lose it in pursuit of giving somebody else the life they don't have. And that your heart becomes softer, and your heart becomes more generous, and your heart becomes less focused on comfort and self. And that you rise up and become a person that the Bible calls someone who stands in the gap. The gap where? Between the dream giver and the people on the dream giver's heart. And you stand in the middle on behalf of the dream giver. And you do what he wants. And that you become a person that is called a repairer of the breach, a restorer of the cities and the foundations of many generations, that you rise up and fulfill the destiny that's inside of you. I have one great fear in my life. It's a big one. And my fear, and I hope it's the same when you do, is that when we stand before the dream giver, my fear is for him to say, I wanted you to do all this for me, and I was going to help you do all of it, and you wouldn't let me. So open up your heart. Don't walk in unbelief. Be a man or a woman who devotes your life to the dream of the dream giver He's planted in your heart. Thank you, and be a dreamer.
I trust that this program has stirred something inside of you to realize that you can achieve your dream and fulfill your God-given destiny. And in the process, find the satisfaction and meaning to life that you've always wanted. So whatever your dream is, you can rise above the ordinary, conquer your fears, and overcome the obstacles that keep you from living your big dream. And to aid you in your journey, Bruce Wilkinson has provided some tools you will find helpful and motivating. Just go to www.thedreamgiver.com to find out more about how to listen to the voice of the dream giver. And let Bruce know if this program has touched you in a significant way. Thanks again for allowing us into your home with this program. On behalf of Bruce Wilkinson, I'm John Tesh.